just start giving me those small shoulder circles that we always talk about. Nice and small to begin. We're eventually making those bigger and bigger until we get to that full range of motion where we're going to take a few reps there and then start dwindling that back down. And then we're going to start going same thing, just in the opposite direction, going backwards. Couple things for you guys to focus on. Don't feel like your hand is really the thing that's moving. Really try to consciously consider that shoulder and its mobility. That's what we're really trying to focus on here. We don't want to go too forceful. We're kind of like a windmill in it. We want to be mindful, sensitive of that cartilage in there. It is our most mobile joint, this shoulder here, but it's also our most prone to injury. So that's why we're warming it up diligently, safely, really taking those openings as much as we feel comfortable, being conscious of our limitations, feeling it go through that full back motion and up. And of course, as we start coming down, let's start going backwards. And I want you to think about that same thing, but while we're going backwards, it might be a good time for us to even more consciously consider stretching out that chest, activating those shoulder blades as we're coming back. You might even start to feel those back muscles activating a little bit more. That's awesome because those are all important for that shoulder mobility and activation. Same thing, taking a few at the top, then start winding it back down. And right there, guys, let's keep both those arms out. Start giving me those hamstrings. Just sidestepping, squeezing those hamstrings, bending at the knee, trying to hit those glutes, and we're chest opening at the same time. Trying to get that whole body moving, blood flow throughout from our heads to our toes. And same thing when we were doing those shoulder openers. Let's really do focus on getting a nice stretch in that chest. Not too much that we're just throwing our hands back there, but be conscious about that range of motion. Get a nice dynamic stretch in here for us moving up, while also activating those back muscles, whether those the medial traps, which pretty much will extend to the arm, or those rhomboids, those muscles between the shoulder blades. Those all play an important role in our ability to keep our chest nice and open instead of rounding out, as we may see as a side effect of maybe doing a lot of desk work, especially while we're at home. Right there, guys, I'm going to have you take those legs, leave them a little planted, and just start giving me some squats. Really focus on pressing through the heel, getting that glute activation, those hamstring activation in early, trying to focus on everything that posterior chain back here rather than making it too quad heavy. Really try focusing on sitting back into those heels, even if that means you might lose a little bit of range of motion. That's okay. Maybe just focus on going a little bit deeper each time. But then, guys, as you start getting more comfortable with that, let's start giving me those calf raises at the top of that range of motion. Once you find yourself standing all the way up, just take a moment to pause, squeeze those heels up. Again, that's just important for some blood flow because a lot of our blood does like to pool down there. Maybe you start to feel your ankles or feet hurting, getting a little swelling in while you're sitting at your desk. Getting some calf raises as well as some dorsiflexion. Eversion and inversion can be helpful, but with this warm-up, let's just focus on that calf. The soleus, one of the calf muscles, does play a huge role. Lori, hey there. Nice to see you stopping in. I will mention quick, heavyweight should get us through most of today's total by strength. Medium weights, of course, available if you want them. Now, guys, I'm going to have you spread those legs out a little bit more. Just give me some side shifts. Let's try to focus on staying low if possible. The main goal here is to get a nice stretch of those adductors in between. So if we don't want to get too much of a glute fatigue, we can come up each time focusing on that stretch. But if we're able to stay low, like I said, just allows us to activate those glutes. But of course, that still main focus is that stretch in the interior. And feel free, if you want to take a little bit of a focus on one side, take a little focus on the other, that's okay. Or if you want to keep it dynamic, small stretches each time, nothing too forceful, that works perfectly too. I'm gonna have you guys come back in. We're gonna start giving me a couple lunges. We can do these normal speed for sure to get that blood flow going. But let's also take a little slow, at least on that down portion, trying to focus on keeping that pelvis neutral, torso upright, so we can get a little bit of a stretch in that hip flexor, that back leg hip flexor. Always nice to do, especially if we find that tight from us sitting a lot. Getting that stretch in eccentrically is one of the best ways to improve your flexibility, improve muscle length. So let's not abstain from that. And right there, guys, you can come back on up and just give me those hip openers. And same thing, other side, outside to in. Closing the hip, this allows us to stretch the glute versus those hip openers. We were trying to activate the glutes and stretch those adductors. Now we're activating those adductors, stretching the glutes. But right there, guys, we're gonna go ahead, quick break, grab your water, take a sip, keep that body moving, feet pumping a little bit, and yeah, take that sip nice and slow so your body can really maximize its water usage. All right, as you guys are coming back, we're gonna start ourselves off. Weights optional here. You're just gonna give me some sumo squats. Those weights could be right up here if we're holding them, down here off to the side, or I know some of us like to put them on our shoulders. Completely optional, but let's have those legs a little bit wider. Really focus on pressing through the heels. And we're gonna start in 2 and 1. Trying to focus on keeping those knees out. Don't let them cave in. Keep them nice and out. Getting as low as we feel comfortable with our heels still being that primary contact in the floor. Squeeze those glutes on our way up. And guys, this is it just to start us off here again. Nice transition here into our conditioning segment. Guys, you're giving me 10 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, and you're gonna come back on up. Now you're giving me some side lunges. Go ahead, start that. 2, and right now there, guys. Side lunges, if we don't really have that much space, the other option that we always recommend is right here, side lunge. Keeping those feet planted. It's easier for us this way to maybe stick our heel into the ground, focus on that glute control, versus we're doing that dynamic. We can slow it down for sure to help us out, but we might feel our force start to go up towards our toes. So as much as we can consciously consider it, let's try to focus on keeping back on those heels, really squeezing those glutes on the way back up. But it may be inevitable, depending on the speed. Of course, slowing it down would help us out a lot, but from keeping us to going a little bit further on those toes. Guys are giving me 5, 4, 3, 2. Next option here, guys, it's going to be either a Keirsey lunge or we're going to find a wall. We're going to give ourselves a wall sit. But again, that Keirsey lunge right here, step to the side, same thing, on over. Otherwise, we have a wall sit. Trying to keep those thighs parallel to the ground, hands off the knees not too far forward, still pressing through the heels. Of course, as always, if we don't have a wall, you just give me a squat, or at least a squat pulse, and then come back up if those knees are ever starting to get a little too heavy with that quad activation. But guys, we're starting right now. So again, that's a nice Keirsey lunge, trying to avoid that hip from dipping like that. We want to keep that hip nice and level with the ground. Sometimes this is difficult for those of us just doing a normal backwards lunge to avoid that hip dipping like that. That really comes from a glute medius activation on that side. So if we're struggling with that, maybe we can regress that back to just a backwards lunge. More than okay. Give me 5 more seconds, guys. 3, 2, and I'm gonna have you guys come off the wall back to me. Now we're just doing a nice RDL dual leg here. Go ahead and start that. 2 and 1. Keeping that back nice and straight. Really pinch those shoulder blades together. Weights can be out in front. We're utilizing that hamstring and maybe that glute stretch as an indication for us to come back up. That's our limiting our range of motion. We really want to focus on squeezing those glutes, squeezing those hamstrings to find ourselves righting ourselves back on up. You guys, give me 15 more seconds of that. Carol, nice to see you as well. Carol, unless you didn't rewind the video, you guys, 3, 2, and 1. Heavyweight should make us through most of this class. Medium weights available if needed. But guys, we're gonna go through that system one more time, those 4 exercises a little bit quicker. We won't have those breaks in between. So right away, let's give us those sumo squats in 2, 1, and right here, guys. Again, really focusing on getting low, at least so that our legs, that upper thigh area, is parallel with the ground. Utilize that glute squeeze to initiate that comeback up. You're also going to feel those hamstrings working, those quads working, but the quads can get a little over fatigued if we consider, or if we keep that as the primary focus. So that's why we want to consciously consider the glutes. Transitioning to a side lunge in 3, 2, 1, right back up here, guys. Oh, and right away, let's give me that side lunge. We're in it right now. Of course, other option if we don't have that much room, side lunge right here. I know with that dynamic, we might find ourselves coming down pretty quickly, but if we're in this feet planted, let's focus on controlling that weight down as well. This eccentric portion is a great time to really improve our strength as well as improve muscle length. So let's not avoid that. You guys are giving me 5, 4, 3, 2. Let's either find the wall or start with those curtsy lunges in 2 and 1. So curtsy lunges or backwards lunges. If we're finding those hips dipping a little too much down that way. And of course, if we're on this wall, let's have those feet far enough out, thighs nice and parallel to the ground, knees out, not in, press through those heels. About halfway there, guys, halfway. Ten seconds. I want you guys, as you're starting to feel a little bit more fatigued, really focus on pressing through those heels into the ground. Get that glute as activated as possible for these last 3, 2, and 1. One more time, guys. Give me that RDL right here. Really start to enjoy this stretch. That's why we like this move so much. It's not just a strengthening move, but it's easily a recovery move for our hamstrings, for our glutes. All of these can be if we focus on this down portion, this eccentric portion. But this one really is prominent in its ability to recover. 2 and break right there, you guys. Let's give me a drink of water. Back here in just a second. All right, guys, we're coming on back here, grabbing our heavyweights here. We're gonna have a shoulder shrug. Both hands are gonna be activated at the same time. I have a weight in one. What I really want us to focus on is having those shoulder blades pinched comfortably back. We really just want a neutral position. We don't have to over squeeze back like that, but if you find your shoulders maybe a little bit more rounded today, let's get them in that neutral point. Squeeze in right here from the neck to the shoulder. That's just gonna be it. It's just a shrug. Let's go ahead and start that right now. So again, that tension is right there on that lateral neck. Pretty much the muscle group that we work at the end of class during our 4-way neck stretch when we do our side stretches. This is strengthening that muscle, and maybe you have some neck tension. So good question is, why would you want to strengthen this? Well, doing this nice eccentric portion, again, in this movement, it's this down portion. Great way to lengthen the muscle, and actually a great way to relieve tension over time if we're putting in these shoulder shrugs variably within our workouts. Let's give me 3, 2, and 1. Guys, we're going to keep these weights here. We're going to move them on up, and we're going to give me an alternating shoulder press with that offhand being down and not up to relieve tension put on the elbow joint. We're going ahead and starting that right now. Alternating shoulder press. Of course, if we're doing these shoulder presses and we find our back hyperextending to get that weight up there, even a small one like that, let's stagger those feet. It just helps give us a nice base of support for our spine. I know a lot of people say that our spine is built for stability, but you have to be gentle on it, making sure we're not overloading each of those little vertebrae between it. That's why we like to take the staggered stance. 3, 2, and 1. Guys, pretty much keeping with that staggered stance. You're going to be giving me an alternating row. And actually, we're going to have both of those hands up. And then that offhand is going to be holding that weight at the top. Let's go ahead and start that in 2, 1 right here. Of course, make sure those shoulder blades are as pulled together as possible. Reason we always focus on that is because, like I've said before, that's the antagonist group to this chest muscle. So it helps us avoid rounding our shoulders a little bit more. So yeah, it's holding up here, keeping this arm nice and activated, holding that elbow to the sky. And you guys are giving me 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Guys, we're going to find ourselves on our way down on the mat. We have 3 activities here, a little bit of a main activity with some post-exhaust. And it's going to be a chest press into a chest fly into a pullover. Starting again with that chest press, both hands at the same time. We're going at 3, 2, and 1. Pressing up. Focusing on nice control on the way down. Maybe about 3 seconds at a minimum. Not letting those elbows slam into the ground. Feeling that chest muscle lengthen towards the ground, as well as squeezing on the way back up. Ten seconds for me, guys. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's have everybody's hands up top, and just right away start giving me these flies. Same thing as before, really focus on allowing that arm to slowly come down towards the ground, especially towards the end there, right before, like the last few inches before our hand and our elbow touch the ground. That's when we're going to get the most downward tension on that fly. It's going to allow us to maximally eccentrically stretch that muscle, which is, again, good if we ever find ourselves with a nice tight chest that may lead to some upper back pain as well as some rounded shoulders. This is the time to focus on fixing that problem. For another 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Keeping those hands up, guys. Leaning them on back. We're giving me those lat pull or those pullovers right now. So again, try to keep that elbow as straight as possible, pulling from both the chest as well as that upper back, that lat muscle. Right when you're feeling that maximal stretch towards the bottom, right before the weights touch, recontract. And again, still enjoying that eccentric motion, because the lats as well as the chest, two muscle groups that both may lead to some bent shoulders. So it's good to stretch those. But 10 more seconds for me, guys. 10 more. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Right there, guys. Go ahead, set those weights on down. You can. We'll be doing some bicycles next. Right here in 2 and 1. Right there, guys. Alternating, opposite elbow, opposite knee on the way up. You can keep those feet elevated a little bit more, or if it helps, you can put them down, alternating them up, and even just leaving them planted and giving me those twists if we feel we want to regress it a little bit more. 10 seconds here, guys. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's flip on over, you guys. Last 2 for us. We're going to go over a plank and then a bird dog alternate. So let's start off with those elbows right here, guys. 45 seconds. 3, 2, and begin. Go ahead, check for me your shoulder, hip, and ankle placement. Pretty much want a straight line. I know you guys may not have a room full of mirrors like we do here, but if those hips are a little bit higher, that is a-okay in this moment. 15 seconds right there. And when I say hips a little bit higher, just maybe a little bit above that straight line. Not too high, not too low is pretty much where we want those hips. Right there, guys. That's our 30-second mark. 15 for us to go. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 more for us, guys. We have those bird dogs. Great movement for protection for our low back. Opposite arm, opposite leg, alternating here. Let's start those in 3, 2, and begin. Again, we're finding ourselves in this nice tabletop position for those of us who enjoy yoga, with our offhand, that wrist right below the shoulder, knee right below the hips. And if we find ourselves losing balance in any direction, take a moment to find your balance first before you put that leg back down. That's part of the reason it's so helpful with our torso, low back stability, is because we take that time to understand those weaknesses. Breaking here in 3, 2, and 1. Right there, guys. Let's grab that water, having that right next to us, and let's find ourselves in this Spider-Man stretch right here. Again, just focusing on stretching out that hip flexor a little bit for us. And of course, at any moment, feeling like you need a sip of water, go ahead, take it. Always want to be drinking water in order for us to improve, get some of that positive blood flow back into our body, especially if we may have sweat a little bit during here, as well as the proteins and hormones that the muscle is releasing. We want to be able to make sure we can flush out any bad ones as well as spread any good ones throughout the body that we need to. Let's go ahead, switch over, guys. Same thing, other leg. Just giving me that Spider-Man stretch here. And right there, guys, let's have you come on down to the ground, spread those legs, stretch right down the middle here, focusing on those adductors. We stretch them before class. We activate them a little bit during those side lunges. So we do like to pay this area some attention because it tends to lack attention in a lot of people's minds, and we like to get or keep those adductors in line, maximizing their flexibility. And just to really get the nail in the coffin, let's give us a nice little butterfly stretch here as well. Right there, I'll have you guys stick one leg forward, wrapping that other leg across, hugging in that knee. For those of us who like to get a spinal twist in, more than welcome to do that as well. But our main focus here is that glute stretch, but there's no reason we can't get that spinal twist in there. And right there, guys, go ahead, switch it over, same thing. Right there, guys, we're gonna go ahead, stand on up, finding a wall. We're gonna do a nice chest stretch. If we don't have a wall, we can go ahead, wrap those hands behind the back, pull up. But like I said, we're doing that chest stretch. I know sometimes you guys like to play around with which one of these you prefer to do, whether it's hands behind the back or the wall. So I'll let you guys experiment with that. If we are on the wall, we're gonna go ahead and switch right now. If we're have both of those hands behind the back, just make sure that we're taking a rep off or a moment or two off if we feel like we need to. Otherwise, we can go ahead, carry on that stretch. And right there, guys, we're gonna bend at the hips, give us a nice folded over hamstring stretch here. Feel free to touch the toes if we like to. Otherwise, we can just cross those arms. The spine can also feel free to flex or go into flexion, really extend that vertebra. And to come on back up, guys, let's place those hands as low on the shins as we can go. Track them up towards the direction of the knee, maybe a little over, so that we extend at the spine. Then let's extend at the hips, finishing with our four-way neck stretch here. Let's tuck that chin into the chest, stretching the back of our neck. Right there, let's go ahead and raise it up, tilting our head back now, stretching the front of our neck. And return to center. One ear, same side shoulder, stretching the side of the neck. And as I mentioned before, stretching that muscle group that we were focusing on with those shrugs before. So hopefully this feels a little bit better today. And raise it up, same thing, other side.